For today's review, we are looking at another old DC Multiverse figure, and this time it is the Thomas Wayne Batman from Flashpoint. And before I talk about the accessories and the figure, let's take a quick look at the data profile card. As you can see, there is this beautiful comic book artwork of Thomas Wayne Batman standing in the rain, and on the back side of the card, you do have your usual read-up for who the character is, as well as additional information that they don't provide on these data profile cards anymore, which shows how old this card is. The source is from Batman number 22 from the year 2017. His real name is Thomas Wayne, his height is 6'2", and he weighs 210 pounds. And it reads, in an attempt to alter the course of history, the Flash traveled back in time to save his mother's life. This, however, resulted in the crisis-level event known as Flashpoint, rippling across time and changing the world as we knew it for the worse. In this alternate timeline, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne survived their deadly encounter in Crime Alley years ago, but their young son Bruce was killed instead. Driven by the death of his son, Thomas became Batman. Though this Dark Knight is far deadlier and more ruthless than the vigilante hero his son would have become. And that's a pretty good read-up on who Thomas Wayne Batman is. And when they say deadlier and ruthless, it is true. If you read the comics or watched the animated movie, you would know that this Batman uses guns to fight his enemies. And he does not have the whole no unaliving policy like Bruce Wayne has. And one more piece of information that I also want to mention for those of you that don't know, in this universe, Martha Wayne becomes the Joker. And the explanation from what I remember is that after the death of Bruce Wayne, she pretty much loses her sanity because she can't process the fact that her one and only son is gone. And it makes sense for a grieving mother to feel this way. But from this downward spiral that she falls into, she eventually becomes the Joker. So in this alternate, messed up timeline, Thomas Wayne becomes Batman and Martha Wayne becomes Joker. Very interesting. And with that said, let's talk about the accessories that are included with this figure. So he only comes with 2 accessories, and of course you already know what they are because it's quite obvious. This Batman uses guns, and he got 2 gun accessories that he can hold in his hands. And these are some pretty cool sculpted guns right here. I don't know what they're supposed to be. They're a handgun of some kind. But yeah, I really like the sculpt details and some of the painting details that they applied to it to give it this sort of wash. Pretty cool. And I will show how this looks like in his hands as well as in his holsters later in the video. And that's pretty much all the accessories that he comes with. I don't ever count the DC figure stand because they all come with that anyways. So let's move on into the aesthetics of this Batman. As you can see with the costume that he's wearing, it is very much similar to the Batman costumes that we are all familiar with, but there are some interesting design elements that are different. So this bat emblem in the center is not within the circle. It is bigger than the circle right there. It takes up a good portion of the top part of his chest, and for the circular design, it is a red color instead of the usual yellow. And for his head sculpt, it is a pretty nice looking head sculpt. He does have a little bit of like a, is this supposed to be a 5 o'clock shadow? I'm not sure what to call this, but you can see a little bit of like his beard underneath his chin. But the way that it's painted on my copy of the figure looks really rough, but it's there. And his eyes are red, which is not the usual colors for Batman's eyes, because when he wears the mask, it's usually the white eyes. But in this case, it's red, and it represents the fact that this Batman is ruthless. And for the shoulder of his cape, he does have these little pointy bits, which is kind of cool. And for his belt, he does have pouches and stuff where he probably stores his ammo since he does use a gun. And as you can see, there are his holsters right here. And what's actually nice is that they did not glue the holsters onto these red parts right here. When it is glued, it does hinder the movement of his legs. So that's nice that this is not glued down. Now, I know some people probably won't like this because if it's just hanging on the side, it does look weird. But for me, I just prefer it this way because more movement for the legs. And those are some of the details right there. Now, of course, the belt could be painted a little bit better, right? It shouldn't all be red. But in this case, I think it's fine because I'm going to bring in the comic book source material because I actually have a floppy issue of Flashpoint here that I got for free from one of my orders. And as you can see, let me find a good picture here of Flashpoint Batman. I haven't looked at this comic in a while, so I don't actually remember how his belt looks like. Oh, there we go. Actually, no, that's not a good picture. Let me find a better one. Let me find a better one. Where is it? Come on. Here we go. As you can see right there, if I can show this better, his belt right there is all red as well. Like, there's not much, like, details to it. In some angles, in the comic book, they do color it with this sort of, like, metallic look. So, if you want to make it look metallic, you could do that if you have the red paint for it. So, there's options to customize it. So, yeah, there's his utility belt. There's his holster. And for the bottom of his legs, you do have some of the armor pieces like his knee pads and these boots that he's wearing, right? So that's pretty cool. And there are some details right there to show some battle damage, like it's worn out because he's been wearing this for a long time. And as you can see with his arms, he does have the gauntlets, and there are some battle damage designs there as well. So the overall aesthetics of this Batman costume is pretty cool. It's simple, just like the usual Batman costumes we see, but I do like the overall look of it. And for the cape, it is, of course, soft PVC. It is not a cloth cape, but the overall sculpt of it is not too bad either. It's not like in some sort of like a windswept sort of thing, which honestly, I'm glad they didn't do that because I don't like pre-posed capes because it does limit articulation with some parts of the figure as well as posability for dynamic posing when they do that. That's pretty much all the aesthetics of this figure. And now I'm going to talk about the articulation because this figure is quite old. So I want to start with the feet down here because as you can see, it's a ball peg. It's an old school ball peg, which these were not the greatest articulation joints for Mcfarlane figures. Sometimes they don't even work or they don't even want to make the figure stand. And the problem with this figure is that he does not like standing. He likes to fall over all the time, which is not great. But as you can see, there is articulation there. There's swivel and there's also toe articulation. But when it comes to standing, it's not the greatest. You have to like pose him a little bit so you can get him to stand. And then for his head sculpt, he can look up, kinda. Not the best. It's like really tight on my copy of the figure still, but he can look up. Looking down, not exactly the greatest, but he can look down a little bit. And then turning his head left and right, he can do that, no problems. Tilting his head side to side, also pretty good as well. So the articulation for the head sculpt is decent, but it is tight in some areas. And then for his arms, they're like really tight, as you can see. Like they barely want to kick out this way, right? Not kick out, but like lean upward. But as you can see, it does run into the shoulder part of his cape, which luckily is not connected to his arm. But as you can see with the articulation, you're not really going to get much out of this arm at all. You can't even get it upward. So not the greatest. He does have bicep swivel right here on the shoulder joint. It does move, but again, it's very tight. Everything on this copy just seems so new still. And then his arms do have double jointed. Actually, on this side it does. The other side does not want to move. There you go, double jointed. And then for the articulation in the hands, there is wrist articulation and swivel. So those work. His torso does move. There is a lot of range of motion right there, which is great, right? Now, can he lean forward? No, because they did not carve out enough room for him to lean forward from the top parts. Can he lean back? Yes, he can. As you can see, there is a gap right there. And then for his waist, does it move? Not on my copy. It is frozen shut. And I do not want to move that joint because I feel like I might snap something. So that isn't great. So the torso articulation is amazing. The waist is pretty bad. Now for his legs, can he do the splits? Not exactly a full split, but as you can see, they can go out this much. So that's not too bad, I suppose. Can he kick upward? Nope. That's as far as he's going to kick. Does he have double jointed legs? He does. But the joints are so tight. Let me see if I can loosen them. There we go. There's double joint right there. And for the thigh swivels, do they work? No, they don't. So there are a lot of issues with this figure when it comes to articulation. And I think it's just because my copy, a lot of the parts are just really tight. If I do heat them up with like hot water or hair dryer, should loosen it. But after all these years of being on my shelf, I don't want to do that because I'm scared I might break some stuff. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But yeah, articulation for this guy, I would say, is decent. You can get him into some action poses as long as the joints work with you. Because when they don't want to work with you, well, that's just not fun. So, all right, let me show what he looks like with his guns in his hands, because that's probably the best part of this, is having him hold his guns. Yeah, Batman with a gun, that's not normal. You know how Batman, whenever he sees a gun, he just like chucks it? He's like, get that out of my face? Yeah, that's basically the opposite with this one. The moment this one sees a gun, he's like, hell yeah. It's like he wants a gun. So there you go. He got his handguns, and this is looking cool. Like, you can actually get him into some dynamic poses, I guess. Let me just try. The reason why it's actually hard to like move his legs upward is because this waist area, this was before they implemented the soft PVC material. It's like a very solid plastic here. So his legs are not going to be fun to like move out. But there you go. You can do like a pose like this, kinda. Right? Maybe. So, you know, you just got to get creative. But there he is with his guns. And now I'm going to show you how to put one of his guns away into the holster. Very simple. So the holsters actually keep his guns in there tightly so they don't fall off. All you do is you just slide this in, and it just goes in. And there you go. His gun is in the holster. All right. Now it's time for some comparisons. And this is where I'm going to bring in the other version of the Thomas Wayne Batman that I do have, which is the unmasked one, so I can show the differences between them. And that pretty much will wrap up the review for that figure, because I am not going to make two separate videos since that one is just the unmasked head sculpt. So let me just get him standing. And as you can see, this is the unmasked one. So he comes with the same gun accessories. It's in his holsters. And he also comes with the sword. So for those of you that don't know, this is a sword that he uses to impale Reverse Flash in the comics. That's what puts an end to the Reverse Flash, which is kind of crazy. So for this unmasked version, this one looks okay with the head sculpt. I think the design of the head sculpt is nice, but they messed up on something. The skin tone is not the same as the skin tone on this version right here. If you want these two to go together on your shelf, it doesn't really look right, because it's like, how did he get from this skin tone to this skin tone when he takes off his mask? It makes no sense. And it feels like they kind of just rushed the release of this unmasked one, because at this point in time, they were doing quite a couple unmasked versions of some of the characters that they've released in figure form. And this guy just seemed like an afterthought. That's why it feels like it was really rushed. And nobody was really buying this figure at full price. I was able to get this guy for like a pretty low price. And the only reason why I bought him was because I wanted the gun accessories so I can give it to one of my other figures, which I don't need to do that anymore ever since I got those Mcfarlane Toys gun accessory pack, right? But at the time, it was just a pretty good deal for a figure like this. I got them for less than $10. So the 2-pack that reissued this Batman, they fixed the skin tone differences between the mask head and the unmasked head. So if you haven't picked up these previous iterations before, that 2-pack is probably your best option. So just want to point that out. And that's pretty much all the differences between this guy and this guy. And just to have them side by side, let me zoom out. Here he is standing right there, and I'm just going to have him hold the sword, actually. So you can see the representation here. Let me get this in his hand, if it even wants to go in. There we go. Hopefully he stands. Do not fall. They have the same problem because it's the same mold. Alright, so here they are next to each other, standing side by side. And as you can see, they don't look bad next to each other. You know, the unmasked and the masked version. But in the future, I will definitely pick up that 2-pack. Because I do want to do a comparison with these two figures with that 2-pack version for sure. So stay tuned for that whenever that happens, I suppose. But there's the first comparison here. And here he is next to a few other figures. So let's have him next to the bat suit. I already forgot the name to this bat suit. What the heck was it? Was it the final bat suit? There we go. So this is a mega fig. So here he is next to this guy. Here he is next to the creepy Hal Jordan. I got some comments on my review. A lot of people were saying that his face looks creepy, which makes sense because he is evil with all those rings in his hands. So there's that comparison. And then here he is next to Sandman. This Sandman, not the other two Sandmans. So there's that. And for the last comparison, here he is next to Mr. Miracle. And there you go. That's all the comparisons for today's review. And if you found today's review of the Thomas Wayne Batman figure informative, do give this video a like. And if you want to see a few other Flashpoint figures that I haven't reviewed yet, do comment below if you want to see that. I mean, I'm still going to make them happen anyways, but I have plans for next week. I can always shift the plans to another Flashpoint character. So, yeah. With that said, if you want to follow my channel and subscribe to it, you can. It would be much appreciated. And take care, and I'll see you in the next video as I botch this ending. Usually I always have a proper way of ending this. All right, bye.